I'm Kat Train of Propagate, and we are a worker-led collective that specialise in local, community and sustainable food projects. We believe that food systems change offers real solutions to addressing our climate, nature and cultural emergency, which I think is like repeating what we're all saying. We're all saying the same thing, right? I'm going to talk about some of the things that we're already doing all over Scotland. So we work mostly in Central and West Scotland, and what that's going to look like in Renfrewshire. So we're going to be working in RenCAN on community food, but also farmer dialogues. So one of the things that we do already is we support communities to start growing food. And it's about empowering people with knowledge about how to grow healthy, tasty food, which I think a lot of people in this room already do. And in everything that we do, in every project, we embed permaculture and permaculture design. And if you don't know what permaculture design is, it's basically a load of thinking tools that when you use them together, it allows us to creatively reimagine our environment, but also our behaviour. So if you are involved in community grown projects, you will be well aware that it doesn't really matter if you grow loads and loads of kale if nobody in your community likes kale, or they don't know what to do with kale, or they don't know how to pick kale. So part of what we do is also educate. Sounds really patronising, but we work with people on cooking workshops and we share recipes together about, all right, so here's some random things that we're growing in the garden, how can you use them? And kind of break down that scary barrier that stops people picking stuff and using stuff that's grown around them or like wild or in their community gardens. So part of what we do and part of what we are doing is about food security, but it's also, and like sovereignty, food sovereignty, but it's also about sovereignty over our health. So reconnecting people to knowledge about the herbs that grow around us and how we can use herbs to improve our health. Seems like a really simple thing, but it's this knowledge that's been lost. So it's about re-educating everybody, because we've kind of all forgotten like the power of nettles for our health, right? It's a really simple, cheap thing to do, but it's a really empowering thing to do. And we love worms, and we love healthy compost. And again, composting is such a simple thing to do, but it's like growing food or sharing food. It's a way of connecting people. And if you don't compost, you're probably thinking, what am I talking about? But connecting people with the idea that waste doesn't exist in nature, right? It's this human construct, we create waste. And if we can use our waste and transform it into this amazing resource, like we're not giving it to the council. People that, if you give your waste away to the council, your garden waste, or your food waste, you're giving away your resources. But if you keep your resources, you can like build your soil, build your communities. And so when I'm doing composting workshops, I like to introduce people to the idea that composting is actually this form of radical activism, and it doesn't cost us any money. But we're using this thing that's regarded as a waste product, and we're using it to heal our most precious resource, which is our soil. If we don't have our soil, and we don't have the life in our soil, we also teach people about saving seed, because if we save seed the same way that we save with trees, if we save with vegetables, our plants begin to adapt to their surroundings, and they also become more resilient for the climates that they're grown in. If you buy seed from Sutton's, you're growing seed that's really resilient in the south of England, which is brilliant if you live in the south of England. But if you live in Renfrewshire, it's a completely different climate. If you've never looked at a pinch of soil in water through a microscope, it will blow your mind, right? So come to library next Thursday. When this thing that we're all walking on, when we see it and we just think it's like dirt and it gets under your nails and then you see the life that exists under our feet and all of around us, it shifts your mindset and you suddenly place value on soil. It's not just dirt, it's full of life, it's an entire ecosystem. So then with that knowledge, and then you think about modern day farming, that's quite a stark contrast, right? So where's all the life gone in that? So our soil is degrading, and it's degrading really fast, and there's like crazy statistics out there, some of them unsubstantiated and some of them maybe a bit more substantiated. If we till our soil and we plough our soil, we're compacting the layers further underneath what we're tilling and ploughing. And this, if you've never seen it, this is mycelium, and this is what mushrooms come from. This exists in really healthy soil, and every time you turn your soil, you're destroying all of this. The mycelium and the roots of plants, they lock the carbon into the soil. So every time you've got roots in the soil of like a tree, of mycelium, it's holding that carbon into the soil. You come along with like a spade to dig it over, or a big tractor, where's all that carbon going? So if we think about our soil and we think about how much soil is in Renfrewshire, we have the potential to keep a lot of carbon in the soil with not like high-tech equipment, just with plants. One of the ways that we can keep even more carbon in the soil is to keep our soil covered as much of the time as possible. So not all these fields that you see that are just like naked soil, having your crops in lines as normal, but then you have a cover crop in between, and that cover crop keeps even more carbon in the soil. And you're like, why are you telling me this? Because we're not farmers. Well, one of the ways that we can mitigate flooding, and again these are photos from Renfrewshire of, you know, we are affected by flooding. If you think about a tilled field, it's all brown. Not only is the carbon gone, but the ability of that land to soak in water for like water infiltration, the water just runs off, right? So if you drive along at the side of a tilled field when it's been raining heavily, you're driving through floods. So flood mitigation happens in soil as well, like in farming fields. So one of the things that Propagate does, we set up a network in Dumfries and Galloway of regenerative or nature-friendly farming, or whatever buzzword you want to use, but farmers and market gardeners and smallholders who are doing things very differently. So they're keeping animals, they're growing crops, but they're prioritising soil. And this network it's a peer-to-peer network of farmers. So it's not me going in and talking to a load of farmers about something that I don't fully understand. It's about farmers sharing knowledge about all the things that they are trying or they're interested in. And this is the big key thing for farming, right? There's such small margins in farming. Farmers are basically trapped into this system whether they want to be or not. It has to be profitable for them. So it's working out what works and still gives them an income. Because there's no point saying, right, what you're doing is wrong. If that's how you pay for your entire existence. And this is what our farming network looks like. It looks like farmers going to each other's land, standing, chatting genuinely about what has worked for them. So the idea of like mob grazing or moving these chickens about. So these chickens will be moving in after like the cows have been through the land, and then the cows have pooed, and then the sheep move into the land, and then the chickens move into the land, and the animals have been moved through the land, and the land's been allowed to rest, and the farmers also dig lots of holes. So when we're talking about soil health, we're not talking about expensive tools and bringing in scientists. There's like really low-tech ways of judging whether your soil's healthy, and it generally involves digging a hole, ironically. And we do things like worm counts to see, you do it in community gardens as well. If you've got loads of worms, your soil's generally quite good. And we're also looking at things like, again, really simple, like how far do the roots go down? Like where's the rooting depth? Is there mushrooms popping up? Because if there's mushrooms popping up, that image of all the mycelium, that means you've got like really healthy, structurally sound soil. And another thing that we have done that we will be taking out on the road in Renfrewshire is we created this film called Rooted, and it brings together community growing, like community food growing, and pantries and community cafes, and also regenerative, nature-friendly farmers. And it shows you a bit of like how in a small area or a big area, Dumfries and Galloway, how they've built up this local food ecosystem. And the film's available for free on YouTube, and it can be cut down into 5 short films for schools, and there's these free educational resources on our website. Just click on them and you take them into schools if you want. And as part of all these like farmer dialogues we commissioned this artist, Emily Tuff, to work with the farmers and listen to them, and they were reimagining what our farming landscape could look like in 40 years' time. So there's agroforestry in here, and it's like people on the land, right? We're connected to the land again. And I'll be quiet. Thank you.